All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Node Working Group session. We'll start off with a preamble and then we'll get on to it. We have a few items on the agenda today, so we'll get into those. Here's the preamble. The Node Working Group sessions are a time when members come together to discuss and collaborate with ecosystem partners in the Mina Foundation. Topics generally discussed include latest releases, node operations, and other technical matters related to the protocol, although this is at the discretion of the Node Working Group. My name is John Robinson, and I'm the Community Operation Manager at the Mina Foundation. I'm here to support and facilitate these sessions, so please let me know if there's anything I can do to help. If anyone has any questions or would like to say something, please put up your hand. There's the button down at the bottom of the screen there. The sessions will be recorded and we'll be posting them on YouTube to increase the transparency and to get the word out and so people can see what we're doing and some of the issues we're working on. I'm sorry, Gareth, I hope you don't mind. I've moved the updates just ahead of your question there. So if that's all right, we'll get onto that just after. So to start off, I'd like to introduce Andrew of our ecosystem partner, O1 Labs. Andrew, do you have any updates for us today?
Yes, I do. So hello, everyone. I'm Andrew from O1 Labs, the release engineer. And the thing I would like to discuss today is 1.3.0 beta 5, which we discussed in some amount last week. We finally tagged that Friday afternoon. So there's not yet a release notes page for it, so I'll be working on that after this meeting. But I do suggest that folks who are running the beta channel upgrade. Important notes about this release is that we have updated the archive schema again for the Rosetta changes in the entire package. So I would suggest if you are intending to run the archive node and want to try out that setup to use the Rosetta package to just fast forward you to the correct archive state. Yeah, and then there's an optimization that should reduce CPU usage and some of the sort of vague leakiness that we run into with nodes over long periods of time. So yeah, more performance improvements and optimizations. It's getting much better. It's very, very exciting.
So if anyone wants to talk to you about the archive node and that they have any questions or anything, what channel would be best for that? Would that be like DevNet or mainnet block producers in the Discord?
That's a good question. There has been some discussion about it in mainnet block producers. It may justify its own channel, just to sort of organize all of that thought process and the users that are really focused on the archive node. But yeah, in the absence of one, I think mainnet block producers is fine. I think it's relevant to the community that we have an archive node and that we are building tools to make it easier. So having that discussion out in public, I think, is fine.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrew. And for anyone watching the recording later, this is the mainnet block producer channel in the Mina Discord. So you can get in touch with Andrew in there or ask questions as well. I think this is also a bit related to Garrett's question, and I just see that Jonathan's asked something about this also. Jonathan asked in the chat, is the send Rosetta transaction CLI also fixed in this upcoming build, Andrew?
No. To be clear, send Rosetta transaction is not broken. It just breaks the like Mina Ledger wallet Python script. And I believe someone is working on that, but I don't know whether the Python script has been updated. This is the format we intend to use for send Rosetta transaction in this version and all versions going forward. So hoping to just migrate everything over to this implementation, which is correct. It's just a slightly different key format than the one that we expected previously. Yeah. Thanks, so we're working on upgrading that tool, and I don't think there's a huge amount of integrations against that endpoint otherwise, besides that Python script. So
Does that answer your question, Jonathan? Oh, okay. So Jonathan says, so the Ledger wallet needs to change to support the new format.
Importantly, not the Ledger software or the Ledger wallet or any of that stuff, just the Ledger wallet Python scripts that we supply with the Mina Ledger app, like manual install. Like if you use Chlorio or one of the wallet providers with the Ledger Mina app, it never uses this endpoint, and this stuff is unrelated.
All right. Jonathan, does that answer your question? Jonathan mentioned earlier that he might not actually be able to speak today, so he'll be sending text in. All right, thank you. Prithvi, did you have any updates or anything you'd like to talk about before we move on?
I think the updates that I want to talk about, Andrew kind of touched on. So I've been working closely with the networking team as the PM, and they're mostly working on these optimizations that have gone into these latest releases. So and additionally, we're also going to be hopefully exporting more metrics around these optimizations so that we can collect some valuable information from block producers. Apart from that, one of our team members has been working really hard on block production prioritization. And unfortunately, that issue, we've kind of faced some internal problems with integration tests, and it's actually given us an opportunity to make our integration test suite a lot more robust. So not a whole lot to report on that end. I looked through the agenda. There are some items that I kind of want to talk about that others have raised. So that's all for me from now.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Prithvi. Gareth also had a question. Have you had much uptake from the uptime submitting option? I'm not sure if that's for you, Andrew, or that's for you, Prithvi. I think Gareth might not be able to actually use voice today too.
But Regina, do you know whether or not the new system is getting more traction? I have not seen metrics on it, but yeah, so I don't know.
This is the new uptime tracker, Gareth. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the new one.
Oh,
That's what he's talking about. Yeah.
So for the uptime system, I think we're still developing and making updates on it. This current cycle, we're still using the old or the present sidecar system, if that's what you're asking about. Is that what you're asking about?
No, the question is like what's the adoption like? Like how many people are using the new?
Oh, the new uptime system. Not a majority. I forgot the exact amount. I would say, yeah, I think John also correct me. I think it was like 200-ish people out of like 800 are on the new uptime system. And so we definitely need to see more than that. Yes.
This is also something that we'll announce and ask people to make sure they're using. So, but I do notice that Gareth gave some additional information there. He means the status updates.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the status and error collection system. I can speak to that. One thing is we've actually introduced a distinct endpoint for status and error now, so that it'll be easier for us to tell when errors are coming in. So I will include this in the release notes update to show both URLs, but it's basically just node status collection instead of node error collection in the URL. So it'll allow us to better understand, exactly how much of what we're getting. But right now we've had about 100 submissions. I think it's 100 maybe an hour. I'm not sure with the rate. But we're getting about 100 submissions for statuses currently, which is quite a lot more data than we were getting before.
Thanks, Andrew. Emery, are you able to use voice today? If so, can you ask your question?
About SNARK or about the integration?
Regina, would you like to talk on that, or shall I?
you can go ahead.
Yeah, Emery, so that's still going on, and we're still doing a bit of the UAT, but actually last week's been pretty much focused on some of the other issues we're having there, working on some of the email notifications, and also with the snapshot. And so we've been working on the top 120 for the next cycle. So the progress is moving forward, but the priority was on a couple other things this week. So like I say, we'll be putting out some announcements over the next, I'm not sure, actually, I have to check the timeline for that, but to request people start using the new uptime system more formally. That'll give us a bit more information, and there'll be some stuff coming out about that too.
Yeah, that sounds good. Because I don't see anyone even migrating towards that before any announcement by Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been really announced to get a lot of people coming onto it. It was
Yeah, it
done
was
with the
between
first
release
release
notes.
notes. Yeah, exactly. And but there's still, like Regina said, I also think it's something like 200 people or something like that. And that's certainly enough for what we're doing with it. But not so far in the future. We will be asking more people, and then eventually we'll need everyone to try and move over to that system. And the way that it'll work for the first part, it's not 100% decided yet. It depends on a few other people's input in that, but it's quite probable that both systems will be used in tandem at the start too, just to check the data and compare the data between them and get everyone to have a look at it and get used to it as well. Because I know some of you guys will be very, very interested in some of the features and how you'll use the data as well. So yeah, there will be more information coming out on that. So did anyone else have any questions? We can move on. Jonathan also has got some questions in chat, but what we'll do, let's move on to Garrett's question number 2 there. And what the questions were, can we get an update on Rosetta? There have been many positive recent improvements, but I'm curious about the status of using this in production and whether any major or future breaking changes are imminent. We'll ask that one first, and then we can move on to the next part.
Yeah. So in terms of Rosetta, we are pushing to get Rosetta to the same level of sort of stable support in 1.3.0. That the other, that the archive node and that the Mina daemon are at. And yeah, Rosetta depends on a bunch of these archive node changes, but if you include all of those, I believe that what you're seeing now in 1.3.0 beta 5 is exactly what we want to ship for Rosetta for 1.3. So no major breaking changes imminent in that sense. I think that answers the major questions. The major question there. Will Berkeley QANet also be supported? Yes, but there are more breaking changes coming there. There's a lot of new data coming into the database for to support the more complex transactions. So we need to store a lot more data and do a lot more things there, and we're not totally happy with the schema and the structure of that. So there's a lot of potential for change and refactoring there still, while we're still in the QANet phase. At the point when the testnets get a little bit more mature and we're intending to stick with it, we want to get the archive node and Rosetta and everything up to the same standard. Yes. And then what would the suggestion path be for those who have existing archive nodes? The path that we're going to document first, because it's the easiest to use, is to start from our backup. And in general, just if you try to use the Rosetta container, it will automate all of that for you. So it's really simple. But we intend to also push towards documenting the complete path of how to migrate it, because it just improves the decentralization of the network and the integrity of our data if you all are reaching the same conclusion that we reached, instead of just taking our, view of the world. But yeah, at the same time, that's time consuming, and I expect that not very many people will do it. But we want to document how it's done.
Thanks, Andrew. I see that there's a question in chat also from Ivan. Ivan, are you able to ask that with your voice?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
It's regarding the integration with other layer 1 chains. It was spoken that an integration with Ethereum is coming at some point. We don't know the form. We will see. And the thing is something they're envisioned for the integration with Cosmos chains, because they are getting a lot of traction, and as well for DOT and Kusama. And probably it's a good idea to get the Rust version of mine ready and then tackle with those other integrations, because that is in fact one of the advantages of Mina being itself a layer 1, that it really offers the possibility to integrate with other layer 1s. I mean, not in an easy way, but it's doable. You do not depend on other layer 1 blockchains. And I think that is a thing that maybe not for today, but has to be kept an eye on.
Are you able to speak to that, Andrew?
Well, I can speak to it conceptually. I mean, I think this is, I will say just bridges are a very large and complex machine, trying to get layer 1s to fully interoperate. And, the complexity of each chain introduces complexity in the bridge. So it's not to say that any of this isn't not worth doing or that it doesn't have value. I think there's lots of value. But the question really is like, who is going to dedicate themselves to a project like that? And I think that's part of, so far the Mina Foundation has been working with more and more partners to fire up projects like the Rust version, which is, not developed at O1 Labs. And then, as we move on, we can continue to work with other folks who are dedicated to projects of that scale. I consider it to be of a similar, and I think you're sort of hinting at the same thing, like that the Rust version is like a similar scale of project to this sort of thing. But I think that's really what it is. It's about getting partners and folks on board who really want to, dedicate themselves to focusing on this interaction between, one given chain and Mina, because each one is difficult. There's not going to be, there's some amount of infrastructure can be shared across, a bridging Ethereum or bridging other things, but it's not trivial in any
very little, I'd say.
Yeah, very, very little, exactly. And you can see even from designs of other companies, having success with these bridges, they're all really complicated. So yeah, I would say from a technical perspective, the most interesting thing is that, like, I think you're 100% right that there's a lot of crazy, very interesting possibilities. There's a lot of things that Mina can add to a chain once the integration is there and these things become available. And I think that's just as true for, Cosmos or Polkadot or what have you, if not more so. So yeah, we'll see when we can get to the point where bridging to chains like that is really the
Thanks, Andrew.
next frontier.
Thanks, Andrew. Let's move on to the next question there. It's about the auto restarts. And I was wondering, maybe Prithvi, would you be able to speak to this one? It says, what are the known issues to resolve before auto restarts can be removed? Also curious about max uptime node working group members are reaching allowing. I'm not sure if Prithvi will be able to answer this, but or maybe Andrew, you can help in too, but would really like to also hear the max uptime that people here are getting. That would be very interesting to know.
I can't really speak on this one. I'll defer to Andrew.
Yeah, the current situation with auto restarts is, we introduced it for a bug that we no longer have. And so that's why we've, dramatically decreased it from like 24 hours or something to 7 days as the default. And you can disable it or adjust that value to your liking. It's a value is higher than 7 days. I think we actually have managed. I think we have managed all 7 days of uptime, but only in our like Kubernetes cluster, some environments that are stable for that long. On Windows, I find it very difficult, but that's only because there's a Windows update or some other stupid thing that takes my machine offline in less than 7 days. So now I'm competing with other priorities, and it's rarely the node's fault.
Be interesting to see, what has anyone else got 7 days?
We didn't go alive over 3 days yet. Because our issue is mostly about the unresponsiveness and RPC issues over the crash and other bugs. So, and that unresponsiveness, I think, still there. And gets
I've-
worse with overtime, so we didn't go over 3 days.
I've been once over 8 days. That's the
Whoa.
record in my case. And right now, let me check for a sec, and I'll see
Well,
how it's looking.
Like while you're
6 days and a half, 6 days, 6 and 5.8 days right now.
And there's a couple in the chat here. Oh, great. Garrett said he's had over 7 days on the seed and explorer nodes, and Jonathan's had 7 on the block producer node, although he didn't win any slots, unfortunately. And he also has the default recycled time frame, which is 7 days. So I've had 5, but some of my issues are not node related. All right, great. Well, thanks for that, guys. If anyone's watching the recording later, it would be interesting if you could post in one of the channels like mainnet block producers or the DevNet channel, how your node's performing, and that feedback is very useful. All right, let's move on to the next question here. We're actually running a bit low on time here. So question 4 is about discuss SNARK purchase patterns. And I'm not sure if anyone here can answer that.
I actually think I can.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this issue with the team as well, but I'll let Andrew go first.
Yeah.
All right.
So first of all, 128 SNARKs is the maximum. I believe it's also 128 transactions in a block are both maximums with the current consensus configuration. So like this can be changed in a fork, but it's currently the cap per block. And then I believe also it tries to store up an entire sort of tree worth of SNARK work before it depletes them. And if there is not a huge queue behind that of additional SNARK work coming into the network or large amounts of things happening, then it will just take the first 128 and then wait for another 128 to fill up, and then it would take that and include it in a block. So that's fairly standard in terms of what it's trying to do. I think under high load, which this sort of network condition is, where there's always transactions, there's like many transactions to include in every block, that it is more eager. But I don't. That's my naive understanding of what's going on from observations and many conversations with the people who actually know. What was your result, Prithvi?
Yeah, so I think Jonathan brought this issue up to me, and I talked with the team about it. And so from when I talked to them about it, it was mainly about like SNARK work not getting included. And our preliminary analysis was that it might be related to bootstrapping. If you have nodes bootstrapping, they can't process SNARK work. It gets gossiped and added to the local cache, but as if we had seen it, and then the node just ignores the message, and it doesn't get gossiped back to it until it expires from the cache. And so when they bootstrap, they miss the SNARK work, and if they don't have enough SNARK work, they produce a block. They can't produce a block with any transaction. So that was one thing. I'm not really 100% sure that is the root cause, because it really depends on this would assume like things are bootstrapping here right now.
I think the 0 is the case you're talking about, like block 11, 1,000 or whatever, 113,392, where it has 0 snarks and 0 transactions. Like that's an empty Coinbase block. That's someone who didn't get paid for producing it. But like, you know, each node here that produced the block is in a vacuum, right? Like there's a environment that they're operating under. Actually, I think in that case, it's because they produced 2 blocks in a row and no one had seen their first block yet, and they immediately produced on top of it because they already had it. But this is, you know, these are sort of unique situations that are involving a node in a vacuum. Like that node in the first block took all of the SNARK work that it knew about, all of the transactions that it knew about, and then attempted to fill the block, and it succeeded. And then it immediately produced another block, and it had nothing else to do.
Right.
That is like the node, the network working at capacity to some degree, and there's a little bit more capacity we could fill there, but it's an edge case, not the.
I see in the chat, Jonathan says he might be thinking of a different scenario here. He says, I think that's a different scenario. There are many ways 0 snark blocks when the network is not as busy too. This is something that would be really good. We're out of time at the moment, but to discuss in the channel, I'll just read Jonathan's comment here before we finish up too. It says, maybe this is too long of a discussion for the time. Okay, yeah. So this is probably something we can discuss in the channels, whether that be a node working group channel or the mainnet block producer channel or the devnet channel also.
Well, I think what I can also do is reach out to the team and see if they're interested in meeting and talking with you guys, because rather than having a communication async on channel, it might just be good to have like a 30-minute session where we kind of talk about these issues to the extent that we are able to talk about them.
I think I can share our data as well. We average around 100 and 200 snarks per day earlier, but with the beta 4 upgrade, we are only sell like 3 or 4 snark. So there's a significant difference. We are not sure what's the reason about it.
Okay, well, that sounds like a really good idea. It's not that difficult to set up another call if we can arrange a time for that. And maybe this is something we can discuss in the node working group channel and set up another call just to talk about this specific issue. Prithvi, you mentioned you might be able to talk to the team about that. Would you be able to organize something like that?
We have stand-up tomorrow, so I'll bring this up with them, and I'm sure they'll be happy to join.
Okay, great. And we can organize that in the node working group channel for the time and place for that, if that's okay with everyone. All right, well, everyone, thank you so much for all the input today. Thanks to our ecosystem partners, ON Labs, Andrew, Prithvi, and especially Regina too for taking notes and answering questions as well. And thanks everyone for adding to the agenda and the great questions today. Yeah, please continue the discussion in the channel, and it would be great to be able to talk more about this. All right, everyone, you have a great week. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good